Welcome, everyone, to the Scale Lab, brought to you by TechLeap. I am Joe, and I'm here with my podcast partner, if I'm savory, he's sweet, Constantine. And Constantine, once again, a fantastic guest.
Am I sweet?
You are sweet.
Okay, well, we're staying in savory and sweet because with us we have Manon van Essen of Magioni, who is an incredible inspiration for many and has an incredible entrepreneurial story to tell. And we want to dig into that today. As a starter, Manon, what was a decision you made in your business and your entrepreneurial journey that was kind of the most important until now?
I think one of the biggest decisions for me was moving to Amsterdam and getting into a group of really entrepreneurial people. So we were in a sort of startup building with all kinds of startups. And I think the mindset that was there and everything around it, what happened, so how many hours you work and the stuff we talked about was for me a big lesson, because I come from a small town and I didn't know all the possibilities until I came there. So that was, I think, the biggest step.
And what made you decide to go to Amsterdam?
I always was quite ambitious. I think I always wanted to accomplish a lot. So for me, my town was too small, and I wanted to go over the whole world. But the first stop was Amsterdam because my parents was like, "Okay, this is far enough for now, and then you can go."
You say you needed that for the growth of your company, or was it for the growth of you personally as an entrepreneur?
I think it really helped me with the connections and see the possibilities, and also look more abroad and see the endless possibilities instead of being more narrowed into the Netherlands.
Because there were a few steps or a few companies prior to what you're sort of known for now, right? And was this move to Amsterdam like earlier on? Like you said, oh, I'm going to get out of the little town, I'm going to go to the big city.
Yeah.
And that got you into like the first idea?
Yeah. It was like, for me, it was more, I wanted to be in the tech because I really like the tech, and I like all the scalabilities around the whole environment. So I wanted to be in tech, and I was still studying. And then I found out that all the big companies in the Deloitte Fast 50, they were scaling pretty fast, and they all had the technology. And some of them were about putting your greeting card online or putting your photo album online. So it was Albelli at the time and Greets and Hallmark who were scaling up quite big. And I thought like, okay, can I invent something that I can add to that? And my first idea was, can I get your handwriting, your personal handwriting, and make it into a sort of real-time font? So if you type online, that your own handwriting shows up. And that was my first idea, actually.
It seems like a pretty good idea. But I mean, like, where did it go? And it seems like a pretty good idea. I could stop writing because my handwriting, maybe I can make it better. My handwriting's terrible.
Yeah.
So how did it go?
So, well, first I found out that it was pretty scalable. So what I did is I decided to try to create the software. And I found a company who already had a certain software, but then it was only offline. So you can fill in a form, then you have to make a photo with your iPhone. And then they made a sort of handwriting that looked like a real handwriting. So it means with all the irregularities of a normal font, of a normal handwriting you have, and collapse it in a font. And actually I just spent hours and hours making all the combinations and created actually a new certain font and made sure that it worked. So if you typed, you saw your own handwriting popping up in a normal font. And I sold that software to Greets and Hallmark, and that was my first start, actually.
So you sold it, like
the first license, and eventually the whole software, because it's a really long story. Of course, it was 4 or 5 years, but the first was I sold the software, and then I needed to improve it because, of course, I'm not a technician, so I needed more complexity towards the whole software recognition. But I didn't know what to do or where to go. And then in the end, I was talking to Apple. And Apple said like, okay, maybe this is a cool product if you can upgrade it. It's really cool if you can. I want to make it like a new, how do you say, like a toetsenbord?
Keyboard.
Yeah, new keyboard. So you have your Dutch keyboard, English keyboard,
and your handwriting keyboard. Yeah.
So that was my idea, and they said like, oh, I think it's pretty cool. But then I was also in the phase that I didn't have a lot of shares anymore. So I only had 10%. And I was thought like, okay, if I'm going to do this, it's not my business. I don't see myself. I was 23 at that time. So I thought like, okay, I think selling at that point was much easier than going through all the complexity of investing.
So, who did you sell your shares to?
I sold the license to Greets at that time.
But at the time, you said you only have 10% of the shares. Did you sell the other 90% to other co-founders, or were they?
Yeah. So there was a Swiss an investor from Switzerland, and he took some shares, and we sold it together to Greets, and that was fine at that time.
Oh, so you sold the company to Greets? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is your first one.
Yeah.
And you get a sale, like not a sale of the product, but a sale of the company.
Yeah.
This is like pretty rare, I would say.
And the product was not that good. Like it was it was fine, and it was good for less complex things like greeting cards. But if you really wanted to make it into, for instance, like for handwriting recognition, it was not good enough. So it was perfect for that type of form. Yeah.
And so maybe we step through a couple of these, because you started with this, I guess you say handwriting, but then the next was printing or something as well, right? I mean, you went through a few of these ideas.
So then I started,
just take us through the.
It'd be interesting to how you get to this conversation we're going to have today.
Yeah, so the handwriting and the marketing company was like kind of this at the same time. So I did like two stuff at one time, and I did like all the kind of big, marketing ideas for big companies like Hartstichting. I don't know how you say it like in English, but like really, really big accounts. So I did that. So I learned marketing and the tech side, but I was far more interested in the tech side, of course, because we made also an app with the handwriting, and it got 30,000 downloads in a couple of weeks, and we were a top 10 app in 20 countries. So there I really saw what scaling of technology can do. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. You can create something, and then you can sit back and you get the download. It was like also a top 10 app in India, which is kind of strange. So there I saw really the possibilities, and that made me decide to go more into a scalable business rather than marketing or communication. Yeah.
Okay, so what comes after that?
Actually I quit everything, and then I wanted to travel around the world. But that time my relationship got stuck. So I said to one of my friends, like, okay, where can I go where I'm alone? And they said, like, you have to go to Morocco, travel by yourself. So that's what I did. But then after a couple of weeks, I think, I already had a new idea. So I wanted to go back and decided to start for myself.
So you're on this like trip to Morocco that could last however long it's going to, and you're like, I'm just going to go find myself, and it's going to be 2 weeks later, you're like, nope, got to get back.
I was like,
standard holiday time, and you're back in the country.
Yeah, it was not like anything for me, actually. I didn't like to being all relaxed, and I just don't like that. So.
And what was the idea?
The idea was to do something scalable, but then in food, because I thought like, okay, if I can make an impact, because I thought I was pretty young, and I thought if I can make an impact in software, and someone wrote an article about me, and he said like, okay, it's pretty cool what she does, but it doesn't make any impact. And I
took that personally.
Yeah, I took it personally, and I thought like, okay, if I have a certain talent or anything I can do, I think I can make something and create an impact. So I thought like, okay, what can I do in food? And first it was like creating approachable salads to everyone. And then I started that in the foodhallen in Amsterdam. But it was really one of my worst experience, because I got from a software which got downloaded several times. It was a top 10 app in so many countries, into a 9 square meter store where I have to do anything by myself. So I created all the salads myself. I was working 18 hours per day, and I didn't like my co-founder, so that was pretty important at 9 square meters. So in 2 months I said like, I'm out. So she bought my shares, and then I was at the same point again. So I sold my shares again, and I was on the couch doing nothing. So I thought like, okay, I have the lesson of the tech, where you know that you can do, if you create something and it's good, it's really scalable. And I had the experience in food that I really liked, to create something that people actually enjoy, because food, I think, is really good. And then I wrote down all the criteria. So it had to be scalable for my new business. I had to create an impact. And what I really liked is that I'm not from a rich family. I don't have all the privileges that other people maybe had. So I thought, like, what if I can create something for everyone? And I found out that pizza is one of the most eaten products in the world, but it's also eaten by everyone. So it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. Pizza is for everyone.
It's universal.
Yeah, it's universal. So that's what I really liked about pizza, and I still like about that. The second thing was that I found out on Google Analytics that cauliflower pizza was really big in the US, and it was scaling really hard, but everybody was creating the product at home by themselves, and it took a lot of time. So I thought, like, okay, if 13,000 people already created recipes, and it takes me 2 hours to create one pizza crust, why can we create a pizza crust which is ready-made? So you can just take it out of the shelves and top it yourself. So that was the first idea, actually, of creating a pizza brand. But then I didn't know how to do it, of course.
Well, you went from the apps to Morocco, back to a little bit of food, and you're like, nope, so I'm not doing the salad thing.
Yeah.
And now you have a vision for pizzas that are universal to everyone.
My parents were like, okay, this is completely crazy, because they at some point they were like, okay, what's she doing? And I think I was 25, so I had to find it out all myself. And then I just decided, okay, I'm gonna bake 10 pizza recipes every day. So I did it in my kitchen, and 10 every day. And then after a couple of weeks, I had something that I called a pizza. And I still have a photo of the first pizza because it looks hideous. But I thought, okay, I can sell this one day. I really believed in this concept. So, and then I walked around in my neighborhood, and I asked the pizzeria if I can have a normal pizza next to my healthier pizza alternative to create a new pizza cart. I said, la pizza menu. So we had a normal pizza menu and a healthier pizza menu. And then I started testing. So every day I was baking the pizzas, asking the people for a reference. And I think that moment was really important, because I knew, first of all, I can use the story for eternal, because I can always say I did it myself. Second, it was really important because I tested the product among 3,000 people, and they gave me all the feedback. So I kind of reinvented the product there. And the third thing was that I can go to a supermarket and said, like, okay, already 3,000 people preferred this product over a regular pizza. So there was a market about it. So, and that was like the first proof of concept of Magioni. So we did that in 2 months.
It's very, very methodological. I think what's really
it's
nice
about
your story is that it's basically a software approach applied to pizza.
Yeah.
And with the validation and all that. But then there's another point, is that you then have to kind of find a way to produce it at an industrial scale.
Yeah.
So the scaling is very different than if you'd have a software product. So how did you go from there? So you got your validation of the product. You have a customer base. You have a story to tell. Now what?
Yeah. So that was really hard, because of course, if you work in a pizzeria, you get a certain amount of money. So it was kind of safe. So then I thought, like, okay, if I really want to go big, I need to cut off everything, because there's no lesson to learn here anymore.
But before you, because I think this is an interesting piece. You went to a local pizzeria.
Yeah.
And you just said, hey, I make these really cool pizzas at home. I've been making 10 a day. I'd like you to sell them. You talked them into providing that on the menu.
Yeah. But I was also the pizza maker.
So you went into their shop.
Yeah.
And you said, I'll wait. And when one of mine gets ordered, I'll make it.
Yeah, because
you're going to make all the pizzas, and I'll just make
made all the pizzas.
So you said, okay, I'll take.
And only if I had to sell my pizza, I got 50% of the turnover.
So you're like working on commission as a pizza maker, and only if yours gets ordered. Otherwise, you're just getting the hourly rate as a pizza maker.
And I had to buy all the ingredients. So I was like working so many hours a day.
Those guys, like, what a great deal for them.
But also for me, because I was so broke, I couldn't afford renting a place to test everything. So I think it was a good deal for both of us.
I think this is super fascinating, because what you have as a part of your personality already in the stories you've told, even before we get to Magioni, is a willingness just to do whatever it's going to take.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just like, yep, that's the thing. I'm going to go do that, whatever. And then we'll just keep working it until we find a way.
Okay, back to the question.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
how do we go from there to industrial production?
Yeah, so I was working in a pizzeria every day, and I told everybody my story. So I was like, okay, guys, take it really serious, because this is going to be a really big pizza brand one day, and I'm going to sell it, and then eventually I'm going to sell it to Unilever or whatever. And of course, they joked about me all the time. And then one of the dishwashers actually said to me, okay, you have this big mouth, but how are you going to Unilever if you stay here? And that really opened my eyes, actually. I was like, yeah, I have nothing left. There's nothing left to learn here. I have my proof of concept. I know my recipe. I tweaked it. So I tweaked the recipe up to what it is now, actually. So I just needed money, experience, and knowledge how to go to the supermarket. So what I did is, actually, I think the same day I said, like, okay, I'm done making pizzas. You have to hire a new guy who's going to make pizzas. And I started to work on my business plan. And then of course, I had some connections from the tech by then. So I sent it out an email to five of my best peers. And I sent an email like, I'm hiring angel investors who can help me out. So I turned it like the other way around. So like, not I'm seeking for
like
money, but I'm hiring them. So that was kind of funny. So all kind of investors, they responded to that. And then we got 3 investors who wanted to invest in the company. One was international, was quite big already. And the other 2 ones were like seed or angel investors. So we had 3 kind of possibilities. And one of them was Abel Slippens, who is the founder of Sligro. And he had a lot of experience. And also, I think he could tell me a lot about how stuff works. So also on a personal level. Because I didn't know at the time how stuff worked. So I decided to go for him. And so we got the deal for the investing. And then I was already talking to Albert Heijn at that point. So that was actually... So we had then first the proof of concept, then I had the money and the investing, and then I arranged the production site. And the production site is also a really funny story, because my uncle, he has a how do you say, like an uitzendbureau?
Professional services.
Yeah, professional services for Polish people. And if the Polish people are on their holiday to Poland, I had to work in the factories. So I knew a lot of factories, but also a pizza and focaccia factory, because I have to work there all the time during holidays. So I asked my uncle, like, okay, can you call the director and make sure that I can have 10 pizzas? So the guy thought it was a really funny story that one of his employees is starting a pizza business. So he created 10 samples, actually. And with those samples, I went to the supermarket.
Is this the chilled version? Like,
yeah.
So, okay. So,
so this was like the product, what it is now.
So they weren't tasting it, they were seeing it.
Yeah, they tasted it as well. And because they tasted my samples, I created in my own kitchen. And they thought, okay, this is really good. And then they reproduced it with my recipe. And together we went to the Albert Heijn and showed the product. And he's still the producer now, actually. Yeah.
Was the choice of the kind of the vegetarian components in the crust, was that a choice of, I want to make impact, or was it, I see opportunity with that? I think there's an upcoming market for people that want better choices. Which, was it a personal belief system, or was it an opportunity thing?
I think like my personal belief is if I want to do something, I want to create an impact. So for me, that's rather like, it's not a USP, but it's rather a base, a criteria, a standard criteria. And I think the vegetable component was more like, I saw an opportunity with Google Analytics. So it's just data.
Yeah.
So the data showed me the trends. So that was more.
Like, this is a hot space. And I want to get
and it was
in there.
more from a technical perspective. And I think in certain points, you can see that I come from software approach. So also in this point, you just can see on the trends on Google where stuff is going.
Do you have a passion for the product, or did that evolve as you, because it, like you, basically it could have been something else. It could have been appelflappen, or
it could have been everything, actually. It was just, for me, needs to be scalable. It needs to be known everywhere. It needs to be for everyone. And it needs to be a healthier alternative.
Did you, from the start, think about international markets? Because you said it has to be known by everyone. Is that everyone in the Netherlands, or
No,
was
in the
that
world?
The world.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I thought, of course, I thought internationally from the first start. And in the first year we were already in 9 countries, and we had a lot of requests from the US as well. But then scaling fresh pizza is really hard if you have to send it over to the US. So I narrowed down my ambitions a little bit into Europe. So a lot of lessons learned also there about scaling with products, which is completely different compared to software, of course. Yeah.
But when you had your angel investors, then you decided to do the production yourself, basically in another factory. But did you license the recipe?
We licensed the recipe.
Okay,
yeah.
so but then the logistics and the sales, or which part of this whole value chain did you capture with Magioni?
Actually, the front end. So all the sales, the marketing, product development, and ideas, and all the back office we outsourced. So all the product logistics is really important, and the quality. So the quality control.
That you outsourced.
Yeah, because you need all kind of licenses to produce for European standards, and also for the US, and that's all the factories have their licenses. So it's kind of, it doesn't make sense if you want to do it yourself, because the factories have the licenses, all you need. So
there's kind of your point of view on the quality, and then there's like standards in the industry and medical grade type of things that have to be met. And you're saying, I'm going to outsource. I'll put the vision, but someone else can do
all the quality checks and the controlling. Yeah.
But it seems like a bit of it's a chicken and egg thing here. You have to convince the supermarkets that you can do this, and at the same time you have to convince the factories that you got the supermarkets on board because you got enough volume. How do you break through this? Did your investors basically pay up front, so they said, well, we just buy capacity at the factory, or how do you manage to break out that circle?
What I just did is that I went to Albert Heijn, so I got a talk with the category manager, and then with the producer already in the meeting. So they were together and they knew each other because it was a big production site. So I think for them it was like kind of formality. Formality, yeah. So they have all kind of products from this producer. So that was really
they knew the manufacturer they were using already.
Yeah, and
so they knew the quality was going to be good.
Yeah, and then I had to convince them about, like, first of all, who's gonna buy vegetable pizzas, because it sounds really gross. Like if you hear it for the first time, I found when I heard it like cauliflower pizza, I was like, I don't know if I like this. So actually the buyer was like, okay, show me the data where I can make sure that you're able to do this. So what I did is I found a lot of influencers at that point, and I asked them, do you want to take a video and where you say that you're going to buy this product and that you will put it on your Instagram account and that you're going to help me for exposure. So I did that, and on the other hand, I had a lot of deals with newspapers. So I had the Telegraaf and all kind of other newspapers on board who already said that they want to write an article about me.
So you're using kind of classic new world, modern marketing techniques into what is very traditional old world type of bit. Your data that you're bringing to these, the Albert Heijn guys and everyone else is more like what an influencer would talk about than the traditional like line manager type stuff.
In that time they couldn't tell why is a trend, and where do you get the data from? So I could help them with that as well. So I could say, like, I know cauliflower pizza is going to be a big hit, but I can also tell, like, cauliflower rice is going to be a big hit, courgette pasta is going to be a big hit. So you can invent that, but keep me with the pizza. So I could help them.
This all sounds great and super successful, but I heard of many other companies or startups that try to get into Albert Heijn, and there's either they don't get in, or they fear that they basically get tricked out of, that their idea gets stolen by the company, and then it becomes a huismerk or something.
Yeah, you make it sound easy.
You make it sound really easy.
No,
so what?
Easy.
Just go into the kind of the detail. You must have been really smart about this.
Well, I think what I did is I just had a vision, and I just wanted to do whatever it takes to make it successful. So I would go to Albert Heijn and wait for the category manager and ask like, okay, can you give me like 1 hour to convince you? And I did it. I got like, they said like no for almost 30
they
times.
Refused you.
Yeah, they refused me so many times. But then in the end, they thought like, okay, this girl, she's not going to stop until she gets her way.
So you wore them down.
Yeah, and then in the end, they were convinced, like, if you give me an hour to explain my vision, I think then people, they think, okay, let's give it a try. So I got like, in the end, I got 30 stores and 1 month to prove myself. But it took me, it didn't took me a long time because I was really eager. I didn't have money, so I was eager to get some turnovers. But on the other hand, I think I was like kind of the first in the whole fresh area of the supermarkets where I was able to put my own brand there. So if you look really aware into the supermarkets, there's no branding. There's no brands up there. It's even, I think it was the same time with the vegetarian butcher, but I was one of the first. So, and then they said like, okay, we just give you 30 stores, then she will shut up. It's not going to be a big success, and then we're done. And I think that was the kind of the idea. But also at Albert Heijn, we had some people, some influential people who were really engaged in the idea. Like, okay, what if a girl from a pizzeria can make it into a store and make it a success? So it was like, in the end, I think it was more.
They liked the story.
They liked the story, and they wanted to help the story as well.
But you were not scared that the Albert Heijn knew the factory.
Yeah.
And you come with data and tells them, this is going to be really big.
Yeah.
Why did they need you? I mean, they could have just cut you out of the deal and started making these things themselves.
Yeah, I think that's true, and that's the kind of I learned in my whole life. Like, I am not afraid to share or to tell my story, because I think, like, in the end it gets better, and I'm not afraid of people, because I found out all my life that people are really eager to help. And I think it can go wrong at some point, but most of them are just really keen to help. And I wasn't afraid of that, because if I was afraid of that, I would never do it. So it wouldn't make sense. Like the scarcity wouldn't help you, because what if you're afraid of that? How you're not going to solve the problem?
So you got to take the risk.
Yeah, you have to do it.
Did you even think of it as a risk?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was really scared of it.
Yeah. So you thought exactly of what he said, right?
Yeah.
What do I do here? Okay.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how now let's kind of come up to today. I mean, you talk about which part of this you're managing, but there must be a team of people now that you have. So what does it take to run what you're running now, and how many pizzas a day are? Yeah,
so I started, of course, with 10 pizzas a day. Yeah. And now we're doing 25,000 pizzas a day. So it's scaled quite big. But it didn't feel like it. Like in the beginning, it's like all the first steps. So you're going from 30 stores up to 50 stores, and then you're introducing a new product. You're going to the UK, and it's like all kind of, you celebrate all the small steps. And then if you look back from now, it's been 5 years, then you're like, okay, all the small steps ended up to a big success. But you don't really see it, actually. You're just working on your product every day, trying to improve it, trying to create the fans, get people on board. And then it just happened. I think my biggest success was the word of mouth. So people liked the story. So they told the story a lot to other people, to other peers. And I think really important is a really good product. So our pizza is best-selling chilled pizza product in the Netherlands. So it sells even better than traditional pizza. So I think that's the biggest proof of the product, that it's good and even more tasty.
Can we deconstruct the story for just a minute? Because what I hear you saying is that, look, this wasn't just about the pizza. Even though it's a great product and we're very proud of what we put out, this story of small town kid makes it to the big city and goes and works in a pizzeria and then convinces large national chain to, there's something in there that made people want to sort of check
be on
that
board,
out.
yeah.
So in a world where, at this time, I think when you were first going in, like the marketing capability or marketing, savviness of these companies is pretty traditional, like coupons and loyalty cards. And here you're saying, like, we're going to Instagram this, we're going to get influencers. So you're pushing them It sounds like towards a direction that maybe you were teaching.
Yeah, it was completely different because first of all, we didn't have the money to do all the traditional couponing. So we had to prove with new media, digital media, that it could work as well. But the hard part is to let influencers to convince people that the product is so good that they have to go to the supermarket and buy it. It's completely different compared to the digital world where they're already online and you only have to push one button.
Yeah.
But that, I think with really good recipes, and we did a lot of influencing at that point, and we did a lot of tastings. So what we did is we stood in the supermarkets asking people to, I always say, like, if you feed them if they taste it, like 50% of the people buy it 4 times a year. So we're only on new consumers. That's the only goal with Magioni. So
everything's new.
So
new
we
business.
need new consumers because we know if you taste the product, it doesn't matter where you
you're saying
taste it.
they will come back.
Yeah, the chance is 52% that you will come back and you buy it 4 times a year and you make 2 other people loyal. So for us, it's all about finding new peers, actually. That's the whole business model.
Back to the data again.
Yeah.
Back to the data. We're back in the software business all over again.
Just you jumped over, and then you go to the UK and it just didn't even notice. That sounded a bit. I would think going to the UK is a big step.
Yeah.
It's not the same kind of influencer market.
No.
And so can you unpack that for us?
Yeah.
When did you decide to do this? Did you partner up with someone? Did you find new investors to do it? You just basically tell the story about your international.
Okay, so what happened actually is that it got really big in the Netherlands pretty quick. So we didn't need a lot of funding to grow the business. So we relied on our own. And then what I do is I make quarterlies for myself. So what I do is I make goals every quarter and I want to achieve them. So one of them was going into Waitrose, because Waitrose is a really, I know if you know it, I think it's a really cool supermarket. Has a really, it's really high quality. All the cool brands are there.
Very organic.
Yeah, so I wanted to be there. So I just put it on my list actually to go to Waitrose, and I did it the same way as I did in the Netherlands. I just emailed. I found out all the email details, and I just called and emailed and told the story. And then in the end, I got an appointment, and they were actually pretty eager to do it, even more than in the Netherlands. It was a lot easier.
You had proof points, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because we were the fastest growing food product at that time in the Netherlands. So it was really easy to overhand the data and say, okay, with this and this and this adjustment, I think it's going to work. But then we had all kind of problems.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, we had to transport it. So we produce in the morning. We produce it chilled in the Netherlands, and then we transport it into the UK. And then you sell it in the supermarkets the next day. So we have 24 hours. We have to do all kind of stuff. First of all, to get the supply chain ready and aligned with the supermarket is quite complex, especially if you don't have any experiences like me. So, but finally we got everything solved. So we got the first order. But then I found out that the cooling, the cooling aspect of the transport, it got into frozen. So at one point, because it got so cold in the transport.
So the truck temperature.
Yeah, and then the crust shrinks a bit. So if it's getting too cold, the crust shrinks because it's vegetables and it shrinks during cold. And then in the supermarkets, all the crust fell out of the packaging, which was like, I was like, oh shit.
Out of the packaging, really?
Yeah, so just on the floor. And it was, and we got all the kind of really strange. In the beginning, we didn't know it was because of the freezing. And we saw the vegetables on the product and we thought like, how can this happen? And we didn't know what the problem was. And then we had to solve it. And of course, I was so sorry to the buyer as well, because I thought like, okay, I sold this product and now it falls out of the packaging, which is not...
Sort of the worst thing that could happen, really.
Yeah. So
how long did that take before you solved it?
It took quite a while. So what I did is I proactively called them and I said like, okay, we have crust and we have top pizzas, and crust is for us it's a way better and easier product. So I said like, what if we delist the top pizzas and we just sell the plain crust, and then if we solved it, we gonna sell the top pizzas again, which was a good solution because every day in the supermarket where you have products that don't work is a waste of money and also of your image, of course. Yeah. So that's what we did, and then in 2 months we got back, but it cost us 2 months just to find out.
But they remained loyal to you.
Yeah.
You get stressed just thinking about it. I can tell by looking at her. She's just like, what?
That was really the worst part, actually. Yeah.
Because you sold it and it was falling apart.
Yeah.
So you were successful and your company starts growing. And then when comes a step that you start thinking about partnering with someone like Dr. Utker, or how did that come about?
Well, I always thought about it because when I already was in a pizzeria, I said like, okay, I hope I can sell it someday. So it was always part of the ambition, but I didn't see it as a real opportunity actually. And at one point we were in 9 countries, so we were already in Spain and we were in Switzerland and
that's through distribution.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So, but we didn't do it by distribution. We do it ourselves.
Okay.
So it's not that because we don't have the margin for distribution. I wish we had it, but it was not possible at that time. Because for pizza you need a really big scale to produce really efficiently. So the production side got really a big problem because we need to produce so many pizzas, of course, for whole of Europe. And the supply chain costs were pretty high. So the margin of the product was really low. And then I started thinking like, okay, for instance, UK costs us a lot of money. Not only on the product side, but we already had a big marketing campaign. It didn't work out because we lost a lot of money on top pizza. So it was more and more the time that we had all the opportunities, but we didn't have the money to really do it. So then I started thinking like, okay, what is the solution? And really at that point, like 2 big FMCG companies came to me, like, what if can we buy a stake? And that was really at that time actually that we needed the money. So in that time we got, I didn't think
motivated.
of it.
Did you think of a venture capital investor or? Because now you gave away control of your company.
Yeah. I really thought about the venture capital, but the problem is that nobody knows a lot about pizza, and producing pizza is really complex. So even if you have the capital or what can you do with it?
Okay, so you needed much more. You actually needed the logistics and the production and everything. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So you need the production side in order to expand through Europe. So you need a production site which can put out at least like 10,000 or 20,000 pizzas per hour. And there are not many of those production sites available in Europe. So even with our own production site, it's not possible.
So you really saw a limit to what you could do? Or did you also think this could be possible, but it's just going to take too much time, too much money?
For what? Like, because we were, at that moment, our EBIT was really high. And I thought like, okay, our EBIT now is really high, but if we're gonna take VC, for instance, then we need to invest a lot of money. And what if I sell it then 10 years ahead from now? Does it make is it as beneficial as it is now? And I also thought like, okay, now Dr. Utker and another competitor of Dr. Utker wanted to buy Magioni all at the same time. And I thought like, okay, how many times in your life is that a possibility, right?
People just competing
fighting for the company.
So, you retained some control of the company. I mean, you still have some shares.
I have some shares, but it was they took eventually that they will buy all the shares. So it was a complete
buyout.
Yeah,
over time.
Yeah.
But you're running it.
Yeah.
So now you run something that's been acquired by another company. Your decision to sell it was based on the opportunity to grow it. So you said, I wanted to be larger and have more scale, so this is the right decision for us. But now you stayed on to run it. Maybe what are the lessons that you've learned, now running this for someone else rather than running it for yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think first of all, the most important thing is that our ambition to be the biggest European chilled pizza brand is in line with what I did. So I think that's the most important thing. And how I feel about that is less important because I just wanted to create something really big. So I think that's the main important thing. But also, Utker didn't do a lot of buyouts or they didn't bought a lot of companies and not startups. So we had to learn a lot about culture, how to integrate a startup into a corporate, and we had the strategy about we say we stay connected, but we're not integrated. So we kind of stand alone. So we can do a lot of things
Some
for ourselves.
independence.
Yeah,
That's all on the marketing side. I think the production is completely integrated. I assume, or not in
yet.
there. Oh, not yet.
No,
okay.
but in the back office, you have to integrate also a lot of stuff. But we are only a team of 10. And we're selling a lot of pizzas, but that doesn't mean that we're really small. So every hour that the company or Dr. Utker asked from us took us a lot of effort. So we saw actually the first year of integrating was really hard for the team, because they thought like, okay, we have all this freedom and we grow. And then you also saw the growth stagnating because we were so focused on the backside. And before that, we were only focused on the front side. So I think eventually, sometimes you have to do a step back in order to grow. And I think that's what I really learned from this part of the job, from scaling it and integrating it. And yeah.
And you seem very analytical about how you go about this. Did you foresee these kind of structural issues with the product and the ability to scale it right up front? I mean, and so did you plan this exit with a large fast-moving consumer goods company way before, or do you kind of take your decisions as you go along?
Well, I think I always shout about my goals. And so I always say like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And I think it's more about convincing myself that I can do it. And then in the end, it always turns out reality. So I don't know actually which
came
I think
first.
Both. Yeah, which came first, yeah. I think first the possibility, but in the end, I can make it happen, but it's really, of course, selling into Dr. Utker, which is a German company, international. I saw it as a really big learning opportunity. Like I was 30, so I was like, okay, if I can learn from this and I know what to do next time, I think it's really good. And in the end, pizza is a product that you need a big production site for. So it was not, I didn't see it as anything I could do myself.
A question a bit around that. I mean, you mentioned that you trust people. You also mentioned Mr. Slippens of Sligo as an important person. Were there important people that you gathered around you to support you on your journey, or did you have some very important hires that you remember that were key to the business?
Yeah, I think like one of the most important things was partnering up with Mr. Slippens, because he buys companies and sells them like every day. So that was a big knowledge from me. And I also, we talk like almost every day. So he sees me as like a kind of pupil, like a younger...
a protege.
Yeah, protege. He can teach a lot of stuff. So he teaches me all the stuff, how to run business, how to do it, how to be good in food. So I think that's, for me, one of the most valuable lessons. And then...
that just grew, or was there a point where you said, I need a mentor or a coach, or did it just grow out of the relationship that you had?
In the beginning, actually, we got into not a big fight, but in a kind of argument when we first met each other. So it wasn't really a really strong connection on the first side. But when I went back, I thought like, okay, he really triggers something in me, and that I can learn a lot. And I'm all about more learning a lot of stuff. So I think that was the main trigger. In the end, now it's the relationship that it is today, but it wasn't in the start. But of course, people with a lot of knowledge in food or in production side or logistics, they were really, really important in the process. And also, in the end, it only took one buyer at Albert Heijn, one producer who said, I will produce 10 samples. But what if they didn't do that? Then the story wouldn't be like today. So I think Albert Heijn and the production sites were also really important for Magioni.
What about employees?
Yeah, employees, I think for me, it was really important lesson to hire people who are not similar like yourself. So I did that a couple of times really wrong. So I hired people who were good in marketing. Well, I just needed like the logistics, supply chain, forecasting, more financial side. What I learned is that in the beginning you get really easy people on board who love the idea, and then you get into a phase where those people don't match with the company culture anymore. So you have to reinvent actually the people.
So the first part was people that you liked, and the second part was people that were really
Like the
specialists?
idea. Yeah, the first was like people like the idea and they want to get on board with the belief that there was a healthier alternative for pizza. And then in the second part, we got much more people with a lot of experience from the FMCG companies.
Hands-on experience.
Yeah, which was actually in that time we decided to sort of go from an international business now into a Benelux crust focus only, and that made us grow. Like we grow now so much more faster instead of having focus on 9 countries. So now we're much smaller in countries.
Who told you that to focus? Was that your point? So focus, crust, geography.
Yeah, it was Abel and Dr. Utker actually. Okay. So they said like first get the majority of the market shares, and then go to a next country. So that was really a really good decision, but that came along with the experts.
Yeah.
So in the beginning there was just this idea and everything was possible, and then there was this phase of okay, but what is really beneficial, and where can we grow, and what is necessary for the business.
That's a big decision. That's to say we have a plan, we're going to go to 9 countries. Actually, no, we're going to stay on 3, maybe 4, and we're going to do fewer things. So you really, there's a big, almost a pivot in the company to like go down to that, like do something less and do it better.
Yeah, and then you have this strategy, but then you have to align the team, who were in the beginning, of course, all international focused, and then they need to focus on one thing. And what we also really did is adding the data into the daily structure. So every day people tell the data how it's going, if we're on track. So really more, the tech is really more getting into the company as well. So telling your data every day, work with small inventions, small leaps of innovation, go really fast, try to create a new product, for instance, in a couple of weeks instead of a couple of months, which is normal in food. So we're trying to do, also in the company, we're trying to do a lot of new stuff, which of course takes a lot of energy, but also a lot of experience, which I didn't have, of course. So I had to hire it, and then I had to step back from that, which was also a lot of learning.
And for your personality, I'm going to guess that was harder.
Yeah.
Because you're like in there making all the calls, doing this, making decisions, shouting the goals, and now you have to say, there's other smart people.
Yeah, and I don't know what's good. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you manage that?
Not so good in the beginning, I think. But now when I saw the first results, I'm like, okay, I really like actually this phase of Magioni. I really like it because I can step back a little bit more from the company. In the beginning, I was, when it worked, I was really about, okay, I like the idea and I like that I'm busy. And now I like to step back a little bit more and tweak a little bit more, which I think for me is also really good, but also for the company. So I really like this phase.
I think there's a shift as you do these leadership roles in this. You have to understand what your real value is.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we think being busy or having a full calendar or things like that is, I must be good because like everybody wants my time. But in the end, actually, there's few moments where like your time and your energy actually makes a big difference, especially now that you're at this point. So now you're having to decipher.
And it was also really hard because we used the scaling up method a lot, but our team is really small. Yeah. So that's really because you don't see the scalability, but because we don't see if there are 100 people working on the products or not. And we don't see if we get 10 trucks loads a day or 100. We don't know. So it was really, really hard to plan, okay, in which stage are we now and what do we need to do? And do I need to step back or creating more the culture? So it's,
And who are you now in the company? What do you think is the absolutely critical value that you add to this phase of the company?
I think like I like to push the boundaries of everybody. So that's what I do. I'm like, okay, if this is the plan, how can we improve it? How can we make it better or quicker or less expensive? And
they like you for it, or you drive them crazy?
No, not really, because I don't spend that much hours anymore with them. So they say like, okay, if you were full-time around, I think it was a little bit too intense, but they like it in this way. And of course, because we have so many experienced people now working in the company, we kind of lost the startup culture sometimes, and we're starting to think like a corporate. So I think I'm there to remember them while we start.
You're the guardian of the culture as well.
Yeah.
Maybe we can go to some rapid fire questions.
So we have this tradition now that's developed where, as we sort of get to this part, we want to ask you a lot of questions very quickly. So there's no long answers, just as fast as you can, whatever you think the answer might be. And they're not going to be very traditional questions. Okay. So I'll give you the first one, which is if you could travel back in time and maybe talk to that person who was starting the font company and you had 15 minutes, what advice would you give her?
I think don't worry that much. Everything will be okay. Work hard and just keep believing and you will be fine.
Okay.
Keep believing or keep living?
Keep believing.
Stay alive.
Stay alive. That's
if you
also,
stay alive, we'll be fine.
Yeah. As long as you're not a corpse yet.
That's right. Can you think of any 1 to 2 decisions along the way that you thought this is absolutely the right thing to do and you were completely wrong?
Yeah, I totally believed in top pizzas, which was obviously does make sense. Like
top pizza means like a complete pizza.
Yeah. And then I found out millennials don't like that because they want to create their own toppings on their pizza. And I was believing in this, and it cost us so much money. So yeah, that was one lesson. Other lesson is that I think I could have hired a lot of experienced people earlier on, but I didn't believe they wanted to come on board because I thought the company was too small to get really talented people on board. And I think I should have left that idea. Like I shouldn't believe that thought. I think if I pushed it, I could have had better people on board earlier on.
So you were in a bit of battle with yourself there.
Yeah.
Did you actually give shares in the company to your options to your staff?
No, we built up a stock to do that, but in the end we got sold so quickly. It was 2.5 years. So yeah.
Okay, if you could pick anyone in the world, living or dead, to get advice from, who would you ask advice from?
Jack Ma from Alibaba.
Jack Ma.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because I think he looks kind of chill all the time. So I like.
He looks chill to you, Jack Ma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you seen him with feathers and in his costume?
But he has some vibrance about life and about business, which I really like.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you find the biggest differences between being an entrepreneur and being the CEO of something that has to run?
Oh, yeah. I think it's a complete difference between day and night. Actually, nothing is the same about being an entrepreneur, being a CEO. I think I'm now more aware of being the role model, and when I was the entrepreneur, I just did whatever I liked. And I think it's also good to have had both roles to see what fits you and what not. Yeah.
But you're pretty public as well. I mean, you're into social media and you do interviews, you talk a lot, and your story's been told many, many times. Mm-hmm. Do you have an awareness of a responsibility with that now as well?
Yeah, I feel that's my responsibility to show people that anything is possible. But now I'm like kind of bipolar about it, because I think you should tell people, and I should tell my story because it's valuable for some people, or it can make them start their business. But on the other hand, I'm really introvert, so it doesn't stroke with my personality actually. Yeah. So then I'm online, and then I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. And yeah.
How about how do you see momentum versus precision?
I think like for Magioni, it was a big momentum of healthier alternative, and I think you always need a momentum to start the business, because if there's no momentum, I read a lot about that great ideas were invented a couple of years before they break through, but they didn't make it just because the time wasn't right. So I think the shitty part is that you can't plan momentum, right? So
maybe you can create it.
Yeah, maybe you can create it. Yeah,
you did. I mean,
clearly.
what you were describing about how you got social media involved and how you started influencers and basically you created the momentum that you maybe you as you described, it was from the Google Analytics, you described momentum somewhere else, but you brought the momentum here.
Yeah.
And the energy to get on the phone and not let go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more about energy then, I think, and being really stubborn about your ambitions and just go for it. And
I have this feeling, as we've been talking here for a little while, that you tell your story and it's nice and it's a polished story. But I have a feeling like that behind this conversation, you're tough as shit. Like you get on the phone and like this buyer's like, oh fuck, don't call me again. And you're not telling us that. You're just like working them down and grinding them down until they listen to you. It's just the sense I get from our
and that's the culture now in Magioni as well. I said like, okay, if you didn't try it for 30 times. You didn't try it.
You haven't started yet. Once you get done with 30, that's the beginning.
Yeah, then you can come to my
There's
office.
great lessons in there, but for people to remember, like this, failure is the it's sort of the feeding ground for success, right? It's going to happen that way.
Yeah, and it doesn't come easy. Success doesn't come easy. There's always a story behind it. I never met anyone who had success without failure.
And
are you masochistic, or is this because you want to be an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. But you like this.
She's an introvert too, by the way.
Yeah, but 30 times and hearing no all the time. Is that? I mean, do you get a kick out of that? Did you say that makes you want to fight harder, or what is it? Or you just know this and you say, I just invest that time.
No, I just believe in it. So I believe that what I present to the buyer is a good option. And then they don't hear it, so I need to explain them.
No, let me repeat. No, let me repeat. Sorry, I don't think you heard me. Let me repeat it again.
And the other thing is, like, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, but I was doing it all the time. So when I was young, I was selling flowers. I sold goose eggs for normal eggs to people. I did everything I was like really...
You're hustling as well.
That's right. Yeah. Always an alternative.
Selling goose, it's actually really big chicken.
You'll get more yolk. So in the last couple of years, is there any new belief or habit that you formed that improved your life?
Yeah, I really like about what I do is high performance coaching a lot. So I do a lot about coaching and improving myself. And what I really learned is that there are certain tools in your life. So I start every morning with a high performance planner. And that really gives me clarity about how to start my day and what is important. And that makes me less busy. And I think that's really good because I have more time for creation now. Yeah.
So it takes me to the natural question. How do you structure your work week?
Oh, I'm really structured.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We were guessing that. So give us a sense of what is it?
So no, I always wake up at a certain time and then I do some walking and I try to formulate my goals for the day. Then I plan, like I do a sort of gratitude journal. So what do I have where I'm grateful for? But I also plan like what are my next steps? Where do I have to be? I always ask my question every day, like what is the big project I have to work on, even if I can't do it today? So what is really my big ambition? And I think for me, it's also about clarity. And then on the other hand, I'm also really structured about working out, eating healthy. Don't use my phone too much because I think it makes your mind cluttered. So I'm really about having a clear mind. So my thoughts are clear.
So maybe if we lift it to the Netherlands and you're giving advice now to other entrepreneurs, is there anything in the Netherlands that you would want to change to make it easier to grow or scale a company? Because you've sort of run at this a few times and definitely done it once.
I think what we should lose is the idea that failure is not good. So if we are able to fail and we can start, you see that a lot of entrepreneurs, their first business is not the success. It's maybe that their second or third business. And then it also takes a couple of years to make it a real success. So we should give people some time and some space and some space to fail, I think.
So that's a shift in the kind of cultural thinking about failure.
And then maybe...
It's getting better.
Yeah.
It feels better to me now, 10 years total probably around the Netherlands, than the first time I arrived. And it was certainly worse if we went north. Like if I was doing talks in Finland and things like that, with the failure thing was much heavier than it was here.
Well, it also depends if you have a bank financing, then the banks will make you feel failure for much longer.
Much longer. Okay, so I think we're about towards wrapping it up. Any other questions on your side before we?
Well, yeah. What's next?
Yeah.
What's the next horizon? Is it going to be? You say you have more time now. You're taking more time to think and be creative.
Yeah.
It sounds a bit like you are on mini tours to Morocco again, and that new ideas come up. So what's?
Well, I always said I wanted to be an investor, but for that you need money. I think I have a little seed capital now to start my own investings. So that's what I'm teaching about now and learning about. Yeah, and I only want to do it in food. I think food and food technology and food commerce will be really big. So we've seen a lot of scaling up from the tech side and from the data side, and I think food is going to be next. So I want to be in that.
I'm surprised. Actually, I thought you might break away from food, given that you were in tech and you understood the scale of that and how fast it could run, and how it's there's not so many barriers. Food is manufacturing and margins. It's so much different.
What's for you the next thing in food?
I think like food commerce is going to be next. So we've seen through Corona that you can order anything online. And I think food has started that as well. So I think I really like the Gorillas app now. So it's you bring your supermarket groceries.
They're German, right?
Yeah, but they're in 10 minutes in your door for supermarket delivery. So the time to on-demand food products and businesses around that is really cool, I think. And for me, I have a marketing background and technology, so I like more if there's a really cool brand around it. That's what I really like.
But other things like lab meat and or plant-based.
Yeah, I found it. I think it's really cool, and I think I'm curious to see whether we're gonna eat meat replacements or we just stop eating meat and eat vegetarian. So that's for me, like, do we need a replacement for that? That's my question.
I think if you, coming from, so we have a funny...
He's from Texas.
No, Tennessee, which is starts with a T. It's a funny, story. Like, when I moved to the Netherlands the first time, we were vegetarian. Had been vegetarian for like 4 or 5 years.
You had to eat bitterballen.
And then that killed it. No, we landed in the Netherlands, and because we didn't yet speak much of the language and things like that, and at the time, this is maybe nearly 10 years ago, the choices were actually quite limited. And so we ended up starting to eat meat again because we were getting such a protein, depreciation. We literally were like having medical problems because we didn't get enough protein. Today, it's much easier. But I still think that for vegetarians, there is a protein component that, if we can make protein easier for vegetarians, I think far more people will find the way.
What is happening now, if you see the meat replacing, it's not with protein, but it's with a lot of fat.
Yeah, so there's a protein piece to this, and people do shakes and stuff like that. But I do think there's, in case you need
I
ideas.
like the things like the pulled oats. So it's high protein and it's like a meat replacer, but it's not.
And
vegetarian
quinoa
meat.
and things like that all have like the high protein. In the wrap up, anything you want to share? Entrepreneurs are listening to this, right? If we've done our job right, there's entrepreneurs that are listening and they hear your story. What words of advice would you give to anyone who's thinking about it or is currently doing
first of all, I hoped that you kept listening and that you didn't...
If you made it this far.
You made it this far. And second of all, if you want to start your business, I think there's a lot of opportunities in the Netherlands and there's a lot of capital and a lot of growth possibilities at the moment. So I would just start and have fun. I think that's the most important thing, right?
Have fun.
Yeah.
And try 30 times.
Yeah. And don't freaking give up.
Thank you.
And even though it sounds really sweet and like everything just worked out so easily, she was behind the scenes just beating the shit out of people to get things that she wanted, I think, in a nice way.
Yeah, I hope so.
In a nice way.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
very much, Sisto. Thank you for listening to The Scale Lab, a podcast brought to you by TechLeap. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please share it on your network via social media and give us your feedback. See you on the next episode.